The knock at my door came like a SWAT raid at dawn. There stood 2 cops. And grinning behind them was Karen Langley, the HOA vice president. Arms crossed and lips curled in that signature "I own this neighborhood" smirk. She had just called the police on me for unlawfully denying residents access to the community pool, the same pool my grandfather built with his own hands in 1978. Sitting 50 feet inside my private backyard fence. My name is Ryan Caldwell. I'm 41. A burned-out software engineer who moved back to Pinehurst Estates outside Dallas after my dad passed. I thought I was coming home to peace. Quiet swims under the Texas stars. And a chance to breathe again. Instead, I walked straight into a suburban war with the most dangerous creature in America, a Karen with a clipboard and a God complex. It started small. The way these things always do in neighborhoods that look postcard perfect on the surface. I'd spent months quietly restoring the pool after years of neglect. New filter. Fresh grout on the hand-laid tiles my grandfather had set one by one under the brutal sun. Fresh stain on the diving board he'd built from scrap lumber. Every evening I'd float on my back, listening to the cicadas. Feeling the weight of Houston's 12-hour days finally slide off my shoulders. Then the first orange notice appeared taped to my gate. "Dear resident," it read in that smug HOA font. "It has come to the board's attention that the community pool located on your property is being restricted from resident use. As a shared amenity, it must remain accessible to all Pinehurst homeowners per Article 7.2 of the covenants. Failure to comply will result in daily fines of $250. I read it twice. Then laughed out loud. Community pool? My grandfather, a bricklayer who never made more than $18,000 a year, had dug that hole himself in '78, long before Pinehurst Estates even existed. The subdivision was platted in 1994. The deed in my safe spelled it out in black and white, the entire half-acre, including every drop of water in that pool, was Caldwell property. I didn't respond. Mistake number 1. Never ignore a Karen who's tasted power. 2 days later she showed up in person. Silver Lexus SUV. Perfectly pressed khakis. Oversized sunglasses. And the ever-present clipboard pressed to her chest like body armor. "Mr. Caldwell," she called sweetly as she marched up the driveway without waiting for an invitation. "We need to chat about the pool situation." I set down the skimmer and met her at the gate. "Morning, Karen. What situation?" She flipped a page. "Residents have been inquiring why they can't use the community pool. As vice president, I'm here to ensure compliance with the bylaws. It's really quite simple." I smiled. The kind of smile you give when someone's about to step on a rake. "Karen, that pool isn't community property. My grandfather built it in 1978. It's private. Always has been." She gave a little pity laugh. "Oh, I'm afraid you're mistaken. Our plat maps clearly show this parcel falls within HOA jurisdiction. The pool is a shared amenity. Residents pay fees for its maintenance." "Fees?" I raised an eyebrow. "You've been collecting money for a pool you don't own?" Her smile tightened. "It's standard practice to maintain community harmony. Mr. Caldwell, I'd hate to see this become unpleasant. Daily fines start tomorrow if the gate isn't unlocked by Friday." I leaned on the fence. "You can fine me all you want. You still don't own my pool." She stared at me for a long second, then turned on her heel. "You're making a very poor choice." As her Lexus peeled out, I felt the first real spark of anger. Not because of the threat. Because of the casual arrogance, the way she spoke like the bylaws were holy scripture and she was their high priestess. The next morning, 3 sharp knocks rattled the door. I opened it to find 2 police officers and, of course, Karen standing a respectful 10 feet back. Arms crossed. Looking like she'd just won the lottery. "Mr. Caldwell," the older cop said. "We've received a complaint that you're denying access to a community pool." I looked straight at Karen. "Officers, that pool is on my private property. Built by my family decades before this subdivision existed. It's not HOA anything." Karen stepped forward. Voice dripping honey. "Officers, our governing documents clearly state." The younger cop cut her off. "Ma'am, do you have a deed showing the HOA owns this pool?" She blinked. "Well, not a deed per se, but long-standing community use in our plat maps." "So no deed," he said flatly. I invited them to walk the property line. When we rounded the corner and the pool came into view, sparkling blue under the morning sun, shaded by the same pecan trees my grandfather planted, both officers stopped. The older one whistled. "That doesn't look like any community pool I've ever seen. Looks like a private backyard oasis." Karen's face flushed. "Appearances can be deceiving. Officer, the HOA has authority regardless." I pulled out my phone. "I'll send you the deed. The 1978 survey. And tax records right now. And officers, if she keeps trespassing and filing false reports, I'll be pressing charges for harassment." They left with a warning to Karen to stop wasting police time on civil matters. As she stormed back to her car, she hissed over her shoulder, "This isn't over, Mr. Caldwell. The board will escalate." I watched her taillights disappear and smiled for the first time that week. "Bring it." She did. By the end of the week I had 5 more orange notices. Fines now at $500 a day. A ridiculous laminated sign bolted to my fence declaring Pinehurst Community Pool, hours 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., HOA rules apply. Neighbors started giving me side-eye at the mailbox. Karen had been busy, whispering that I was antisocial, hoarding community resources, even hinting I might be unstable because I didn't attend her precious potluck mixers. One afternoon a young mom from down the street approached nervously while I was cleaning the pool. Karen said we could finally use the pool this weekend." I showed her the 1978 photo of my grandfather standing proudly beside the freshly poured concrete. Cigarette behind his ear. "My dad is a teenager on the diving board. This was built before the HOA even existed," I said quietly. "She's been charging you all fees for something she doesn't own." The woman's face went pale. The seed was planted. I stopped playing defense. I called my old college friend Lauren, now a property rights attorney who eats HOAs for breakfast. I dug out every document my dad had kept, deeds, surveys, newspaper clippings from the late 70s showing the pool as a family project. Lauren drove up that weekend, took one look at the file, and laughed. "Ryan, this isn't overreach. This is straight-up fraud. They've been collecting pool fees for 30 years on property they never owned. And I'm seeing marketing materials for Phase 3 expansion that literally Photoshop your pool into their brochure. That's false advertising to investors. We found the smoking gun in county records. Karen and the board had been quietly shopping the neighborhood to developers, using my pool as the centerpiece amenity to sweeten the deal. Millions were on the line. The final confrontation came at the monthly HOA meeting. I walked in with Lauren, carrying a thick binder. The room was packed. Karen stood at the front in a blazer that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Projector showing glossy renders of a luxury community recreation complex that prominently featured my pool. A resident raised his hand. "So when do we get to use the pool?" Karen smiled her plastic smile. "Very soon. We're working through a few compliance issues with the current owner. I stood up. Every head turned. Actually, I said. Voice calm. The compliance issues are that you don't own it. Never did. Here's the 1978 deed. Here's the survey showing your plat stops 50 feet short of my fence. And here, I clicked to the next slide Lauren had prepared, are the marketing materials you sent to investors promising my private pool as a community amenity. That's fraud. Gasps rippled through the room. Karen's face went from smug to sheet white in half a second. Her mouth opened. Closed. Then opened again like a fish. This is taken out of context. The board acted in good faith. Good faith? Lauren cut in. Holding up financial records. You've collected over $180,000 in pool maintenance fees from residents while never owning or maintaining the pool. That money went to consultant fees, retreats in Cabo, and developer kickbacks. The county prosecutor's office has already opened a file. The room exploded. People who had nodded along with Karen for years were now shouting. One older man slammed his hand on the table. I paid $9,400 in pool fees over 12 years. You lied to all of us. Karen clutched her clipboard like a life raft. Eyes darting wildly. Lipstick suddenly looking too bright against her ashen face. For the first time, the mask slipped completely. The polite neighborhood enforcer was gone. What was left was a panicked woman watching her little kingdom burn. The judge's gavel came down 3 weeks later. Blake Ranch, sorry. Caldwell property, including the pool, is private. All fines, notices, and claims are void. This court is referring the matter to the district attorney for fraud investigation. Karen wasn't in the courtroom that day. She'd stepped down for personal reasons the week before. The board dissolved in disgrace. Developers pulled out. Residents demanded refunds. The local news ran the story with the headline HOA pool scam exposed. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Instead, I did something Karen could never understand. I created the Caldwell Family Pool Trust. The pool stays mine. But on weekends. With simple rules, clean up after yourselves. No parties. Respect the space, neighbors can use it. No fees. No clipboard. Just people swimming. Kids laughing. And the occasional cold beer on the deck while we talk about how ridiculous the whole thing was. Last Saturday I watched a little girl doing cannonballs where my grandfather once poured concrete. Her dad gave me a grateful nod from the shade. Sometimes at night I still float on my back and look at the stars. The water is the same temperature it was when I was 10. The cicadas still sing. And I smile thinking about Karen somewhere out there. Probably still clutching that clipboard. Wondering how a quiet guy with an old family pool took down her entire empire. They tried to steal my legacy and turn it into their cash grab. Instead, they reminded every one of us what Real community actually looks like when it's built on truth instead of threats. So tell me in the comments, was Karen really protecting the community, or was she just another power-tripping control freak who finally got what she deserved? Who was truly in the wrong here, the guy quietly defending his family's legacy? Or the HOA Karen who weaponized fake rules to steal it? Drop your thoughts. I read every single one.